Hello everyone and welcome back to our videos. Today we are gonna talk about engine removal. Power plant chapter 4 section B. Engine removal. Engine removal is a major task from a heavy maintenance and must be accomplished in an orderly fashion to prevent personal or damage the aircraft. Many gas turbine power plants are removed as a quick engine change assembly with the necessary accessories already installed on the engine mounting assembly. Why we remove the engine? We remove the engine for many reasons. The reasons for engine removal: the first one, accumulation number of hour or cycle recommended between overhaul. Number 2, degradation in engine performance. 3, foreign object damage. 4, hot start damage. 5, excessive metal particles found in oil, and we can find this by the chip detectors. Number 6, maintenance and repairs. When we remove the engine, before we remove it, we have a safety procedures we must follow. The procedures or the safety procedures that we have take before removing the engine or turbine engine is: the engine should be removed in a good ventilated area. Why? Because flammable fluids often leak and create a fire hazard. The second safety procedure, one fire extinguisher should be available. Number 3, shock the main gear wheel. Why? To keep the aircraft from rolling during removal operation. The fourth procedure, check the maintenance manual if the tail must be supported to prevent the aircraft from tipping back. Number 5, check the maintenance manual if the landing gear shock struts may need to deflated to prevent damage from overextension once the engine is removed from the aircraft. Engine lifespan. That means the years that the engine be operation. Turbine engine have evolved into highly reliable power plants with long service life. Most manufacturers establish a recommended operating time between overhaul for each component or section of turbine engine. That means the time that engine be operation until we make overhaul for it. Some aircraft operators may obtain permission from the FAA to operate turbine engine beyond TPO limits. Depends upon the part of the FAR if the aircraft operates under their approved inspection program requirements. What that mean? That means the aircraft or the engine can be operated beyond. That means we can exceed the time between overhaul, but we need to have a permission from the FAA, and that because many reasons for that situation. After we talked about the safety procedures, now we will talk about the removal procedure. The ignition, fuel and battery disarming. This is the first procedure for removal the engine. Make sure that the ignition switch has been disconnected. Shut off fuel valve closed to prevent fuel from spilling. After that, disconnect the battery. Propeller remove. After we disarming the ignition, fuel and battery, we will remove the propeller. When removing large constant speed propeller sling with hoist is used and more people to prevent damage. After that, fluid line disconnection. The fluid line types used with gas turbine engine, as we studied in the general book in a fluid line. The first one, flexible hose. After that, aluminum alloy tube, and the third one, stainless steel tubing. Most fuel lines are constructed of rigid tube that must drain once removed. So after you remove the tube of the fuel lines, you have to drain it. Should be covered to prevent insect, dirt, other FOD enter the line after blockage or line. After you disconnect all the lines, you have to cover it to prevent the insect and the dirt and the FOD to block inside it. After that, should be labeled to prevent confusion when reinstalling them on the engine. You have to label the hydraulic lines, the fuel lines, to don't confuse when you're reinstalling the tubes to the engine. After we finish the disconnection of fluid lines, now we will make electrical disconnection. AN or MS electrical connector consists of plug and receptacle assembly for multiple wires. To prevent accidental disconnection during aircraft operation, the plug screw to the receptacle assembly and screw with a safety wire. To protect the exposed ends of the connectors from dirt and moisture, you should warp them with moisture-proof. After the electrical disconnection, now engine control disconnection. On the engine that are controlled by single power lever only, one control rod and end must be removed to remove the engine. After the control linkages have been disconnected, the nut and bolt should be inspected for wear. The nut and the bolt that connect the control must be inspected. Cutter pin must replace. The cutter pin, we have to replace it. But if the nut and bolt don't need to replace, place them back in the control cable so they don't lost. After that, we have other connections we have to disconnect. Air intake, exhaust system component, and bleed air duct must also be disconnected to facilitate engine removal. So after we remove the engine, we have to hoist the engine. Engine hoisting. After all engine connections are free and clear, turbofan and turbojet engine are usually using several methods to remove from the aircraft. We have two types of hoisting for the engine, and the first one method requires an engine dolly stand mounted on an hydraulic lifter positioned under the engine. Hydraulic lifter raise the dolly into the position for attachment to the engine. After attaching the engine, the dolly will remove the engine. The second type of hoisting is another method to remove the engine, requires mounting a hoist and special sling. So the second type we will call it sling in the top of the engine, nacelle or the pylon. So our sling, it will come from the top side of the engine and we will remove the engine from the aircraft by sling. This figure shows us the dolly. Here we have our dolly and we have a lifter that rises to the engine mount and will remove the aircraft. In the second figure, we will say the hoist. This is our hoist sling and it will goes down to the engine mount, and after that we will raise the engine and remove it from the aircraft.